This is going to be about doing nothing. In a chapter of a book I'm reading, nonfiction, the author visits Auschwitz, Poland, the site of the former notorious Nazi concentration camp. Why concentration? I guess because they were so densely packed with prisoners. Why camp? He says the place is the darkest spot on earth, and he calls it a death factory. Death here became something that was done with no remorse or pity and with great efficiency. It was a business, a job. The cells and ovens and gas chambers that he sees, he says they were very clearly designed by clever engineers and built by skillful craftsmen. As he goes through the camp, which is no camp, it was a prison, a holding pen for mass executions, and as he walks through it, and it is much larger than he thought it would be, as he goes from one terrible place to another, he begins, he says, to feel the weight of it, and it gets weightier and weightier, pressing down on him until he arrives at a building called Block 11, which he calls the bottom of the pit. In the cellar of that building, he says, whatever men could do to men, of a cruel, harsh, bitter, violent nature, it was done here. And he says that awful building was like a mirror for him. He knew that if he had been the one who had been here, not as a prisoner, but as one of the staff, a guard, an officer, a doctor in an official capacity, he has to admit to himself that he would not have done anything heroic. He would have participated, or at the very least, looked the other way. That place, that building, is an indictment of everyone, of all of mankind. I think Primo Levi said that very thing. I just learned from this same book that Primo Levi committed suicide, and that saddens me. I thought he had passed through, but apparently he had not. The saying is that the only thing needed for the triumph of evil is for a good person to do nothing. There is an awful trial taking place in my vicinity right now. It's a local incident, but it's so terrible that coverage of it is nationwide. A young girl got pregnant, and she kept it from everyone, even apparently her family, though there is some thought that her mother knew, but that is uncertain. This family lived in shadows. She managed to bring the baby to term and to give birth all undetected. And here, though she is suspected of killing the baby or allowing it to perish, it's not certain. It may have been stillborn. The life of that child will forever be in shadow. Whatever the case, when it was clear that the baby was dead, she buried it in the backyard. I don't know how, but this was discovered, and she was charged, and is now on trial for murder, manslaughter, and gross abuse of a corpse. And the truly horrifying irony of this is that she was so terrified of anyone finding this out, that she was pregnant, and the terrible lengths that she would go to conceal this, and now all of this is coming out in full public view, so much worse than a mere pregnancy, a real testament to the old saying that the cover-up is much worse than the crime. The prosecution presented its case, largely consisting of two separate confessions she made to the police. The defense put on witnesses testifying to her character, and it came out that she was a troubled young woman, trying so hard to keep up appearances and meet her parents' expectations. She had an eating disorder, in addition to other behavioral maladies. She would make herself vomit up her food in order to keep her slender figure. Is that bulimia or anorexia? One of them, I think. Her brother took the stand to describe his sister as basically a good person who was driven to do anything to please her parents. He said he knew about the eating disorder because he could hear her throwing up. He said he didn't want to talk to her about it because he didn't want to embarrass her. So instead of doing that, confronting her about it, what he would do, he said, was to turn the music up so he couldn't hear it anymore. If he had heard her giving birth, he would have turned his music up on that too. That is essentially what the guards at Auschwitz did, what we do. We know something's wrong, but we're not sure what to do, and we don't want to get into trouble, so we turn the music up, and then we don't hear it anymore. It's like it isn't happening, and we do nothing. Turns out, that's just enough.